I fought him, but he got away. He cleansed his axe from the blood. How hard was the
Let's
1v1?
report this
I
guy for
need to
being a
know this for myself
stalker.
too. About 50 to 50 I win. Don't get hit by any of the giant's moves. He continued. This is the lair of the ever-chilling frost giants and knights. Cold metalwork. The most expensive minerals and materials can be mined here, risking them coming back in it. There's no one here right now. I don't really feel like carrying or enrock Sarmali or Toby. I have a Babylon infinite hamster. It's weak to Elven C4. If it gets hit, you lose everything in the bag. I mean hamster. James showed in twice as large as normal hamster concerned with something else than being in the air. If you leave stuff laying around, it's going to store it like a magpie, tuck everything away.
What's up, new multi-stream
How do you store
people?
something like a bag plant?
I'm gonna stream to
You just blow
YouTube,
on the
but I
cheeks
can't
through its
stream to
mouth.
3
The hamster
places because I'm
enlarged
not
Ned.
paying for restream.
I have some sweaty healing weave. He pulled a professional-looking aid through the left cheek. Your triceps wound looks like it's battle-heated. He put it around asterisk. I can swing fine. They went through a mountain in trance that they could have easily missed and found cold forges with anvils and blue minerals.
I guess it's not
Around were
only
pickaxes
restream
and mining
the,
equipment.
the source somewhere else if they
They
add a
smashed
logo
through,
as
and
restream
efficiently,
on it.
pouring went sapphire lead, super platina, and
Oh
wizards.
well, I saved €10 each
Crystal,
month from not
the
paying.
hamster, ate
Or it's
wine-soaked round
more, I
bread
think.
left by the knights, really tucking it away. James put the hamster upside down in his pocket for bombs. We can sell the ores for more if we turn them into bars first. If we combine sapphire lead and super platina, we create planet core platinum. Can you figure out the spell? James was strong enough for cold metal work. They melted the ores with blue fire pure into white, gray, and blue ingots. They climbed until snow covered the ground, trees and feet. I see him, said Oslo. His back is turned. He's gathering stupid wits. Oslo jumped and hewed 2 axes into JYMR's back. He hung on the 10-meter giant as JYMR flung around. Horned yak
Let's go for
berserk battle
90
axe.
streak because it's fun.
Ice cracked like into sea as
Getting
JYMR
more
got an
GP is
excavation
fun.
of frost giant backside.
It's
The
not too
explosion
long,
of
not too
force
short.
magic cracked the axes deeper in. JYMR crouched and deadly spikes grew on his back, covering up almost 360 degrees. He's going to blow up. Oslo jumped off, but lost an axe as the giant exploded like a scientific experiment too naughty. Take this flying whale harpoon. Have you seen them? James got a red harpoon like an Otlotl 1.5 meter, huge and narrow harpoon head. Swift as a flying baguette. Launch. Like red rail guns they threw. Like a laser, it explosively went through the giant's shoulder. JYMR slammed his ice club with a giant shaving razor. It ruptured the ground and sent ice sheet with spikes erecting 25 meters in their direction. He's entering a portal. It was a distraction. Don't go into the frost giant's dimension. We won't survive the chaos. Give up the chase for now. Oslo went in like a stupid promise. James went in after contemplating life and ilk. The dimension was ice plateaus, cliffs, and mountains in space, cold as hurrying death. There was the stare of space and a death like breach. James saw Oslo getting knocked back, next to him like a ferret. I have a bet with the frost giants, said half-monster slayer / magician Sleipnir on his shoulder. We are in a place between worlds. I feel life fleeting and cannot resist change. Terrible agony. I feel the tear of a hand in stranger dimensions. Let's see how much this bastard can take. JYMR screams in pain as black-yellow lightning courses through his blood and overcharged outside. After giant breaths, he swings his ball
Also,
and
be
Jane
cool,
barely
don't
missing
PK
Oslo
me.
and Ice Club. The club thundered a dual tectonic rift jetting with lightning. I want to stop fighting, said JYMR. Magical harpoon. Sleipnir acrobat over the harpoon on his shoulder. Both of them used different ice magic. James got frozen eventually from the different angles and area. Slow MO into frozen persona. Oslo didn't know what to do and had to explode him off the area as Sleipnir conjured sunlight lightning. Let's finish this. Ass Kicker Series, Modern Ass Kicking. James did a combo of martial arts beatdown. JYMR was just taking damage, losing chunks. Being charged by Sleipnir, JYMR smashed his ball and chains between the guests. The metallic shockwave and pressure messed up their sound. Thus, the electric surge toasted them. The odds of you beating me on JYMR is 0. Let me get down. Sleipnir tormented Oslo with a spear and dagger. Coughing blood, he took bloody lessons, and his left arm would never work the same again. Throw me, Mr. Help. James covered the distance in 1 second thus. Whirlwind. Oslo started whirlwind with axes out. They got outskilled, and when tried to anchor, too much were sent into the sky.
How do you say that in English?
Modern ass-kicking, winner's draft. They were breaking Sleipnir's armor. Unholy hybrid, black lightning. An explosion knocked everyone to the walls of the arena. This will spend his life 100 times as fast.
I said my hovercraft is full
Instead
of eels.
of ice, JYMR was black onyx, jetting with lightning. He was upset. Earthquake lightning. The ground launched them off their feet, and chain lightning bounced like a playful sprite. Oslo read a pocket scroll, and they were turned into sapphire. The lightning bounced, maximum times, tinkering on the crystal. I also have rocket feet scroll. Take my spear. James and Sleipnir fought with spears in analyzing lounges. Sleipnir thought cocky that Noon beats him here, but James picked up a technique that had to disappear in dimensions to not die. Let's see if he can take this. What? First time ass kicking. Charged up impact on Holy Sky Horizon's uppercut. There goes all your stamina. James jumped 10 meters and seeked like a meteor with his fist. Sleipnir, still in dimensions, blocked his movement. I won't let you do it. Oslo jumped, thus grabbed James behind by the waist in the air. Rocket feet, fire magic. Slam asterisk. Into JYMR, 3 of them devastated. The attacked crushed JYMR into gravel. The ground-breaking silenced the ego and will of the Sleipnir. He was smoking, and he was coughing blood in paintings like the crushed ground, like symmetrical lying, a painting of conquest. Back into longhouses connected. Do you know the way of the voice? Said Oscar the Huskerl cunningly. Bet you knew I did. There is ancient wisdom of battle cry audacious on the other Arctic side. Shouts and fireblood were our people's common attributes before, lost like promises. You might find some dungeons only supposed to reward you with voice knowledge. About half of them, I would guess, he said comically. Cute, bulky axe maiden said. As a historian, it might interest you about our conquest and battle history. We have been trying to claim lands in Einhanger for centuries, but have never had something stick for long. Always winning and losing territory like cards. In and around Europe, we are just too good. They can't figure out our barbarian fighting styles and sieges. We have never lost against Germany, Poland, and few times around Schweiz. Our raids are legendary, but of course we make and trade resources too. Trading is fun and going well. In Italy, we're not going to raid there. They might think of us savage. The axe maiden was annoyed by a fly, and axed the wall. It went through like a railgun. We, the eternal barbarians, are almost as good conquering as the Irish barbarians. Cheeky cunts. I bet them call you cheeky cunts too. The cheeky conundrum. The cheeky infinite loop. Our voice battle cries and berserker magical attacks have not been defended against unless crushed defense. I hope you will learn some. It is particularly great, except for the parts you have to put up with. The women make great poetry and songs. Not that they do less in modern warfare. Barbarian women are not born really weaker physically than men. About 10% less upper body muscle, but 10% stronger legs. I'm digging it, Miss Axe. I'm sure you would be impressive. In the same tone, she said, we have fought elves, but obviously they are a stronger opponent. Our brains work the hardest when we have to figure out how to beat someone practically. Some of these brutes are geniuses when figuring out how to fight superiors. Geniuses of warfare and fighting. Better ally with the elves you can in today's world. My opinion, show me your gritty leg muscles. They pulled up and compared legs. James was bigger with 50% more striations, but she looked like a freak disciple of Tom Platt's. I bet that's how she trains too. She was wide and round, legs like oaks. Flexing in front of people only looks good when you're above a certain size. But skinny builds can also make some parts look bigger. You're getting the symmetry right. Looks like you are an intensity trainer. It's hard to imagine getting less from training harder. As long as you're not going fast the way down. Accept intensity, sensitive arms. The gravity makes you do the work. She came to this theoretical insight, and she would now insightfully attain in the future. Actually, most muscle, 55%, is gained resisting weight. Do you think I need to shock and confuse the muscle? I think you get stronger from adapting to new exercises. Better to focus on adapting to more volume, more repetition sometime, more weight you can vary, rest, etc. Me too, she said happily. It feels like it's only the first time of some new adaptation anything grows. Chapter: Years in Frigid Light. James decided to twist the key mechanism and travel to a plane unexplored by his people. His spirit felt stretched. His instincts warned of danger all the time. He needed to tread carefully. He exited upon stepping stones in a watery cave. Above were ancient faces of giants carved into rock. They hummed like machines and rotated around a violent light. He entered an elevated slab carved with ancient Scandinavian runes. His weight made sure stone stairs, rough, presented into the wall. Outside the cave, it was like a mirrored Arctic, but the light pierced you like crystal, spiritual, and northern lights. He saw 2-meter penguins, more dinosaur. With craned, distorted necks, they seemed menacing and hungry with their mouths open. An otherworldly moth butterfly of many decimeters came flying by on a cliff's edge, followed by a frost dragon. White scales, blue insides of mouth and eyes. It focused on its prey, breathing frost and acid instead of fire. The poor moth hit the ground and shattered into two.
Where did I put my...
It seemed unconcerned of the bigger bodybuilder prey. James laid on his stomach and used fire magic like an engine. From his feet shot fire, and he skimmed across the snow a machine penguin or motorboat across the water.
Should have 2 of those.
Maybe he should have gotten a sleigh. After 40 minutes, he came across a small village hid and protected by mountains. He shot through the snow and entered 2 guards erecting in the fray like he had been using tricks on a skateboard. They had several layers of brown fur and round shields. They looked like cold yaks' 2 pole arms in different directions. Barbarians. Vat. What? Vat means hello on Ironjar. How do you pronounce goodbye?
I have to go to the bathroom.
Valletta. How do you say giant rabbit? Prove you're not dangerous, and quickly, pay us thus. Whatever I have gold. This is a theoretical, outpost spiritual, and guarding ancient wisdom. You look like you're from fiery hell pits, leading armies of molten hell, generally, or as a general. People keep farming our buffalo for hides. One guy was here 16 hours. He's an animal. I'm African and British. I'm from somewhere aristocratic in the Mali region at 1,000 years when it was a cosmopolitan university city. You know Bedouins and Farimbas? Hail, coffee Arabica. The Sebastopol mortar is actually Ethiopian. I know it will resist colonization. You talk like a scholar. This is the wilderness through. Historian, I write history with my fists, poetry, and timeless. You said ancient wisdom. Is it a dungeon of the voice? You're interested in battle cry. Obviously the dungeon is dangerous, said the other guard with his steel pole arm gleaming, reflecting the bright Arctic crisp light. Good luck, adventurer. That wisdom is for all of us. I heard it's not the most dangerous dungeon, through with the rewards related to the weather. Watch out for the anti-mages, they are racist. Don't be stupid, Leaf. It's only less a dungeon compared to a dragon. They argued comically as James ignored them and entered a wooden village savage, frozen and minus 70 colder than the Arctic. It was like a fort with the dungeon protected. He didn't feel like talking to many. He saw giant bunnies in their snow coats except one brown and one black. 2.5 meters tall and 6 meters long. One of them came curious and with a cute nosing observed and imprinted. Then it jumped straight up into the air, 3 meters like a flea. Boing, another rabbit, further back, mimicked the behavior. The brown had predator teeth and energetically zoomed with pent-up energy. He went into a savage, weather-bit store like decayed through a 1,000 years. There was snow bearing into broken windows. You wear your clothes on the inside here. Eventually, a red-haired captain-looking woman with commanding presence and socialite cookies and cream, focused demeanor come to James like he needed survival resources. What customers do you get here into icy hell? Just barbarians, she was kind yet cold. What you want is a piece of fur that will keep you unfrostbit in the dead Arctic and mean freezing hull of the sapphire ice. She seemed comfortable talking for both of them.
Is these some pistachios?
There seemed to be
and
farting noises
peanuts,
like grunting by a
cashews,
pig.
almond, pistachio.
Buy an Angora chest pelt, an additional piece of clothing you need. You can afford the investment. There was farting like presumptuous. The pelt was fluffy, grand, thick and glorious. It was compact and heavy. He looked like royalty putting it on. It was shaped like a V, wide on the shoulders. Maybe he should thinking about hugging people. They're pretty great. I shall honor them. The best protections against the winter is the fur of our great white predators, falcons that reach 2 meters. Can you shut that up? What is the contemporary farting? It's the rabbits they went to inspect. These are Schwarzbahn rabbits, more docile, naughty, tolerant, intelligent, and random than regular rabbits. Longer ears, you should see our prized Angora Schwarzbahn. From behind frozen logs came an ultra-hairy white cuteness with a fatty mane. It was the cutest thing he'd ever seen. While getting his arm close enough, it started an instinctual and reasonable nosing. They grow so much hair they don't mind us cutting it at all, just a big sheep in it. When it's shedding season, a whole room can be filled up with hair, just standing there. I have a giant rabbit too, actually. Really? She said and meant it. It's more medium dog, sized through, Sigmund the Destroyer. Great rabbit, he said in Scottish. Destroyer of crops and peppers, she said in the same wavelength and pleasant. Vanquisher of enemies, great mewing streak. On to the dungeon. Buy some health and mana pies, will you? Rhubarb raspberry. It will tell you the journey is long. James had been meditating and feeding off the life force of plants and animals, keeping him alive like the poor. I'll buy some fruits as well. I'm as vegetarian as the rabbits these days. We have smoked paprika ribs, 3 kilos, 75% off. All right, whatever. As he entered a grand barbarian, stone hall high in roof, it led to the door which lead to the dungeon. The stone hall was culture, tall, and a warning. The regular-sized door lead into a smaller slope down. The ice around was beautiful, breathtaking see-through teal and magnificent as sapphires. White until they shifted as James slid down, 30 meters, claustrophobic. Polar bears. But they were even larger and had a longer craned neck with dog ears, glowing blue eyes and ruined forehead, some black striped demon horns, demonic breathing. Hungry was the polar beast, but hungrier were thee. James went for the ultimate hunger slap. Like hit by a giant grizzly bear, the polar beast spinned 5 times in the air before landing, knocked out like by Mike Tyson. Blood gushed like blood magic and returned to James. He felt he would last. This indeed extended his life, feeling like repair of the brain and DNA. After following through the corridor, it opened into a cave system, into a many routes, and was inhabited by dinosaur-like birds, for eyes gray and gargoyle-like. He used his automatic robotic guns to defeat the dinosaur overpowered. They only came so close, feathers flying and pulverized. He entered the left route and eventually came into a throne room.
I
There
should
was a
eat
crowned
anymore.
skeleton with a staff sitting on top. Behind an elevation was a puzzle of which tiles to step on. He did not recognize the symbols. Damn it. James felt stupid trying to solve the puzzle. He stepped as far as he could to cross, but one of the tiles glue, vibrated, and disappeared into the depths. I guess some tiles would not fall. The skeleton awakened. He speechlessly, with the force of the dead, pelted James with ice bolts, ice blasts, and ice spheres. James dodged a blizzard, pelting him from the top, and fired cannon rounds. Outsmart my cannon. They strafed in a circle, he barraging and the dead ice blasting until after a long time the dead went down. His blunderbuss cannon was cracked. What was fun while it lasted, he tried cranking its battery. He came into an ice church. The dead sat praying, loyal to the merciless ancient gods. So moved when James strode. It was grand and high in roof, gleaming still and beautiful, completely made of ice. He got lost going through new rooms, elevations, and corridors. But once you try every possible route, you remember into the final room. There were two really chunky bodybuilder-looking ice elementals, immediately alert of his presence, and came intimidatingly. James waited for them to line up and shot his railgun. They had holes like smelly cheese, and it had got to hurt. The railgun was overheated one final time, not designed to last 100 years, and then 1,000 years into the past. Behind them was a chest of black ice and temple. The temple looked barbarian. There were two statues of ancient barbs and tales of gods and adventures in the stone. He had a spiritual experience. His spirit was lifted. Light engulfed him and lightened his heart. He felt one with everything as barbarian voices beckoned. Aliens came and shot with their lasers. Adventures that could take any for research. We learned their technique and shot them down. The last alien of their kind died here, eager for forgiveness and rhubarb pie. The mouth of the two statues powered up in spheres. James felt upgraded as his mouth absorbed the laser arms out. He felt like he had a 12H lithium battery or could breathe laser. Shoot lightning like a robot sentinel. Protect us all. James tried shooting laser. His eyes glowed blue and sphere charged in his mouth. Like looking into Anubis' gaze from the front, he railgunned from his mouth and explosively into the wall. He felt a cooldown charging, and it was considerable. The chest held ingots of Fate Weave shooting Maystar, a magical jade snake ready to pounce, and a large mana/restoration vial that tasted like strawberry lime. He exited through another slope. He came onto a cliffside with a camp and a barbarian. It was snowing. The methane-covered snowflakes were like butterflies everywhere. Makes it impossible to see and stressful to analyze. I am Yakchai the Wolf Killer. I battle all the remnants of the ancient cake and take their stuff. I am the smartest INTJ personality type. Oh, you're smart then? Piercingly forever thus? No, I am as dumb as 7 idiots bitten by a parrot. What? I am a stupid specimen of the smartest type, an outlier. You should just say you're the smartest personality type. I am the analyst, ENTP, fourth smartest, they're very close through. An average IQ or genius reoccurrence. Yes, 140 IQ statistics are different. You want to be intuitive, introverted. Thinker, so INTJ instead of INFJ, and even judging is slightly better than prospecting, but only when introverted. There are no stupid INTP, I would say, but more than anything else, there are individual differences. Did you know personality types vary by country, 2 to 20%, even rare ones? Stupid people tend to die in funny ways. That's offensive. Sorry, I was just being analytical. I think you're being offensive, sticking in it. The IQ scale and curve is based on popularity, although measuring something that scales in usefulness, predictably, 130 is as rare as 70, so being truly stupid is rare, being insecure about everything. Intelligence exists regardless of how we measure it through. Where do most stupid people tend to be? Security service management position, average IQ in military is 85, and there's some are in the gym that are dumb as sawdust, oh well. I heard models are both smart and deep thinking. Models can be deep thinking and perceptive. I respect those that realize they want to work with it. What about physical, endurance, repetitive jobs? Lots of work doesn't require critical thinking or thinking. The purpose is feeling useful and part of society. Duel me, or you don't deserve your stuff. You talk with your blades? I am the mightiest warrior, a hobby of mine. James unleashed his polearm like a samurai unsheathing. Yakshai didn't block it. He came ferocious with his axes. Let me ask you a question. There are no stupid questions. But after James repositioned maximum range, there was no getting through. James got many stabs and then knocked him unconscious with his flat polearm side, not having blocked a single attack. It sounded like a gong and vibrated a long time. His camp had stew and hut and fire, but not much else. James shot down the slopes, fiery back to the frozen village. The village was right under the blood-red northern lights, although the way back was confusing enough. He inspected the rest of the village and came onto a general store. For 1,000 quid, the owner would mark the nearby dungeons and territory as knowledge of a raven flying overhead into his brain. The best protection against the winter is the furs of... I'll tell you something people do on Ironjar. They have a breed of hamsters that is so pure they explode or thunderclap. You got these green, black, and red. Red is the most explosive. It's like a house removal or for a really bad zit, aggressive divorcing. They're pretty cute, great plumage. They explode if you touch them, so people figured out you throw them. I'll take 3 red. I don't know how they exchanged coin and the hamsters. One rare item a traveler presented was Thor's own wife's coffee grinder. No matter how little coffee beans you put in and grinded, there would always be lots of coffee left. Legendary item. Thor, has 3 boars that replenish the next day after you slaughter them. Somewhat eternal glory. The weather turned pretty harsh, actually on a dime. James could not see nor move, nor think, consumed by the blizzard. The extremes were something to get used to here. It felt as normal as conservative Saturn. He kept heating himself from the inside. His absolute unit had turned really quite red, but with his new Angora pelt, he could reach sufficient temperatures. James put in maximum thrust from his fire feet, and he blazed like a machine onto the amnesia on the second ruins, Erder. The slopes into the ruins were without stairs, so he rounded them up. Bandits waited for him thus. These ruins take a toll on you, said a rogue in a face mask. James shot up into a fiery sky and slammed the ground molten. The impact deafened, and fire pushed the bandits all away in different directions, eventually off the mountain. Except for one. Lucky, both my bracelets protect against fire. Brown hood, red face mask, 2 machetes. James engulfed her with fire, and as she was busy, James charged his voice into a railgun. If you give me your stuff, I'll let you live, Munger. You can't defeat me with magic. I am the Gravedigger, Anti-Mage Crimson. James' mouth stood agape, like he could not chew. The railgun went through her chest. She was drained of her confidence and life as a half-diameter hole absorbed the snow on the ground with thick blood. She had flew explosively like critical. Looks like she robbed some people. James weighed her purse and found 2 small diamond rings and a designer assault brick. No magical weapons. There seems to be potions of sharpness and clarity, but they don't help on university tests. It also chisels your jaw. James was already getting delusions of someone with his face to chest slit, following him half dead, but just for a moment. He figured the reward must be great, and he found the door inside the ruins. His sanity flickered.
I feel like skipping to over here. Later entering Solgard Docks.
Later entering Solgard Docks. I got to get myself a ride like this. Look inside the docks in it, said the nice merchant. Looks like the ice melted here into sea. The city was snowy and frozen, many red and green wooden buildings, and massive icebreaker ships of almost every color.
Let's see if
Parts
he
of the
comes
city
over
were
here.
only accessible by boat. Some water streets were small, some large, some islands. They only had winter sports for sports, although mixing in wheelchairs down the mountains, but the ski lift were free. You could see impossible slopes going up black through
Going from nice
glaciers
blue
and
scroll.
swaying through grassy rock like a park. It looked like grass, but were algaes. They also covered vastly the underside of the ice, a green kingdom under the water if you were upside down, and some shrimps or omega fish ate the algaes. He could see the mount shop from the icy gates. Indeed, they had giant bunnies and compact mammoths, giant curve-horned daks, very square white and teal dinosaur tortoises, and white gorilla sterodites pulling with giant, rare steps. A kangaroo bunny seemed to be very relatable because they are the same size and weight as humans. There seemed to be a 3M mix between a hamster and a yeti. It was brown and like a bodybuilder hamster, content on shutting up your arguments, gleaming eyes because he had a condition and being photogenetic. A hamster based on fear, it could be concerned beyond eating your mattress unattended. A bunny-eared elf with a lisp offered a spell that lets you talk to animals somewhat well, but drained your mana a lot, and a blizzard's bite spell that cooled down bunnies in warmer climates. The sturdy yeti is obviously a rare mount for icy status. Channel some snowballs for powering up attacks. A real yeti, you can see the purity on the baboon buttocks purple. But they're cool about the winter? No, everyone freezes here. Every animal in snowstorms realizes eventually that this place is just awful and pointless, so they seek out warmer climates. Especially the axe. The land under the Arctic goes like a pand, can be seen melted far enough south. James bought the lot, bunny food, Angus hamburgers, and one bunny, thus went to choose one outside. Who wants to travel around the world, he said. Some bunnies jumped close. Is it safe? That isn't safe, they said. Cute breathing. As he touched a white bunny with a bit of a mane of fat-looking royal, it was also an absolute unit. It jumped 3 meters into the air. Pick me. I don't mind traveling. And it never goes as planned anyway. Asterisk lick. Lick. Lick then he licked his own, ear being pulled down. You're just awesome, aren't you? And quite a unit. Let's be friends, said James and gave some giant-fitting peppers and blackcurrant pie. It seems the woman had fed a bunny Carolina Reaper. The bunny farted jets of flame and then tackled her like sensitive upset 5 seconds later. Goodbye, gang, said the bunny. Due to the spell, the voice was heard inside his head. He felt an urgency in the voice, a bunny urgency to be alert and safe. Like stress to be afraid. It is really a fear like the darkest void. Bunnies can get a heart attack from being scared, like an accountant, and now James would ever be afraid of this himself, stressing about it for him. He was locked behind pain and an eternal system. He guided the bunny in leather straps. The bunny white fur was fluffy.
I'm thinking about personality stuff. Might do some stuff with that later. I'm thinking how all the thinkers have T thinking, and all the feelers aren't the intuitive feelers aren't mixed thinking. I feel they're all feeling. And you would think like, well, that's just too low little variety between them, but they're very different. You know. But all the dutiful, sentinels, whose reliability cannot be doubted, especially with one of them. Of course, talking about the ISTJ. Those that are sorry if I said rather reliable there. But the thing is, they are all J's, right? They're all judging, which means it doesn't necessarily mean judging, but it's something else. It's also being a planner, right? That was what I was thinking about. They have a set amount of energy to plan, organize, and lead, and then they need to take a rest from like responsibility and get their energy back. All J's are planners, and all P's, prospecting, are random, spontaneous. They have a very high energy to spontaneity, you know. The thinkers are different when they're a J or P. And even the doers, half of them are thinkers and half of them are feelers. For example, they base their decisions on logic or their heart, if they're feelers, right? The feelers cannot think with their heart. What do I really want, you know? I will figure out what it is while they're just in certain situations. It's better to let your feelings decide.
He guided the bunny in leather straps. The bunny white fur was fluffy. Did you know I'm a
I'm
very
sorry.
smart human? Super smart top 0.1%. James said randomly. He was breaking the bunny.
But even prospecting people might have a plan for like their celebrity retirement. Come on, Brian, get it together. For their vacation, right? Yeah. Uh,
Did you know I'm a very smart human? Super smart top 0.1%. James said randomly. He was breaking the bunny ice. Wow, said the bunny. I am very hungry. I want one more pepper. James agreed, reasonably, and pat his head. The bunny faced like a colon and a 3. I had actually a rabbit before we got separated by a spell. A tiny cousin rabbit, white like me. Dog-sized rabbit, vanquisher, unit of the East.
let's do some personality stuff right now. Bloop. It's kind of hard to look at the context of innovators and not think about proactive toothpaste, right? Innovators in an accountancy landscape, right? And sometimes the personality pages and theories and them selling stuff can be like a toothpaste landscape as well. Let's delve into this. C'est le débatteur.
YNTP debater is a
Just go through interesting personalities, which is eventually all of them because they're all interesting. Or you know, when you go through 60% of them and those are left that still interesting, you know. You want to be a completionist. Well, I'm not gonna be offensive and say this is like this personal type is boring, right? No, I'm very fascinated.
YNTP.
This is me.
YNTP debater
Genius
is a
ENTP.
personality type with the extrovert, intuitive, thinking, and prospecting traits. They tend to be bold and creative, deconstructing and rebuilding ideas with great mental agility. They pursue their goals vigorously despite any resistance they might encounter.
Yeah, I do have a great mental agility, and it's like I'm likely tapping into something. If I tap in too hard, you don't get anything, but there's a fluidity, there's a fluency. Like someone is fluent, you know, into keeping it the right amount. Yeah.
They pursue their goals vigorously despite
That was
any
interesting.
resistance they might encounter. Quick-witted and audacious.
In life, I pursue my goals and I batter down the resistance. It kind of feels like a superpower, but then you might get hit by depression.
Quick-witted and audacious. People with a YNTP personality type debaters aren't afraid to disagree with the status quo. In fact, they're not afraid to disagree with pretty much anything or anyone. Few things light up these personalities more than a bit of verbal sparring. And if the conversation veers into controversial terrain, so much the better. It would be a mistake, though, to think of ENTPs as disagreeable
They're
or
sensitive.
mean-spirited. Instead, people with this personality type are knowledgeable and curious with a playful sense of humor, and they can be incredibly entertaining. They simply have an
So what do they mean? This is a kind of loaded word. What do you mean entertaining? Are they always fun or are they entertaining? There's nothing to it. It's a bit too big for me, but basically they spend their time being sensitive to certain things, just like a nerd, and they're surprised that they don't get treated as they would like to be treated in a sensitive way, you know?
They simply have an
Very many of them.
offbeat, contrarian idea of fun, one that usually involves a healthy dose of spirited debate. ENTP
Yeah, it's great intuition in their ways that they can have fun. They have fun sparring with their mind. They have fun, for example, in a way to be contradict an usual way of sparring. It's also their way of fun, right?
ENTP personalities are the ultimate devil's advocates, thriving on the process of shredding people's arguments to pieces. Sometimes they even rebel against their own beliefs by arguing the opposing viewpoint, just to see how the world looks from the other side, breaking the rules. Follow the path of the unsafe, independent thinker. Expose your ideas to the dangers of controversy. Thomas J.
He likes
Watson.
controversy.
ENTPs are known for their rebellious streak. For this personality type, no belief is too sacred to be questioned, no idea is too fundamental to be scrutinized, and no rule is too important to be broken or at least thoroughly tested. This may make ENTP personalities seem overly cavalier or defiant, but at their core, their innate tendency to test boundaries has more to do with their desire for innovation and change. As they see it, most people are too ready to do as they're told and blindly conform to social norms.
Let's be greedy. Let's go run a few more laps, I feel like.
As they see it, most people are too ready to do as they're told and blindly conform to social norms, pressures, and standards. ENTP personalities enjoy the mental exercise of questioning the prevailing mode of thought, and they take a certain pleasure in uncovering the value.
Yes, I kind of want to put in work, you know. I want to listen to personality stuff and go like, yeah.
As they see it, most people are too ready to do as they're told and blindly conform to social norms, pressures, and
Yeah, I
standards.
really think so.
ENTP personalities.
They see how every sheep is cowering behind. There's definitely a way to measure the ways that people do too much as they're told, and they see it, you know. Then it's part of their beliefs, right? It's pretty fine, isn't it? But maybe you shouldn't try to see the average person as.
As they see it, most people are too ready to do as they're told and blindly conform to social norms, pressures, and standards. ENTP personalities enjoy the mental exercise of questioning the prevailing mode of thought, and they take a certain pleasure in uncovering the value of underdogs and outliers.
Feels
Their
good.
active mind can't help but rethink the things that everyone else takes for granted and pushes them in clever new directions. For many people with a
Something they do very often mentally is push things into new directions, creatively, with intuition.
For many people with a ENTP personality type, one of life's greatest challenges is to translate their wide-ranging intellectual energy into real-world achievements and contributions. While ENTPs love to brainstorm and think big, these personalities tend to avoid getting caught doing the grunt work of implementing their ideas, and they sometimes have a hard time sticking to their goals. To some extent, this makes sense. They have far too many thoughts and suggestions to keep track of them all, let alone turn them into reality. But unless ENTPs develop the willingness to identify and actually follow through on their priorities.
So you could say, like, what if an ENTP just does things, is disciplined and do everything they should? Are they really an ENTP? I could say that, right? Do they do too much thoughtlessly and not analyze enough? It seems you can choose these things. I'm not sure what if it's like confined. It's about different perspectives. There's many perspectives, but is it two solid things and one is true? I don't think so. I don't know.
But unless ENTPs develop the willingness to identify and actually follow through on their priorities, they may struggle to harness their full potential. The cost of contrarianism. ENTP's capacity for debate is legendary, but that doesn't mean that it's always helpful. When they openly question their boss in a meeting or pick apart everything that their significant other says, these sharp personalities may think they're being champions of rationality and logic.
They kind of face things as, you know, I'm so good at the logic and having a scientific based. The thing is they're debating themselves into logical points that people are missing, but this doesn't seem like the environment usually agrees with that and adheres to logic or even understands. It's just that they keep being in this natural state, and it keeps being met with a non-success socially, and it's just this rational way to be just seems to fit for other thinkers or other ENTPs, you know? They're not like them.
ENTP's capacity for debate is legendary, but that doesn't mean that it's always helpful. When they openly question their boss in a meeting or pick apart everything that they're but they may also be doing their chances of success and happiness
Success, there we
more
go.
harm than good. Not every occasion calls for this personality type's default contrarianism, and most people can only stand to have their beliefs questioned and their feelings brushed aside for so long. As a result, ENTPs may find that their quarrelsome fun burns many bridges, often inadvertently. These personalities are respected for their vision, confidence, knowledge, and keen sense of humor. But unless they cultivate a bit of sensitivity, they may struggle to maintain deeper relationships or even to achieve their professional goals. Many ENTPs find that a more compassionate approach is worth exploring as they strive to build solid relationships. With time,
They can be very compassionate and touchy-feely and huggable. I think that when they show their sensitivity, it's very, very huggable, right? And they can kind of sit on that for a long time and be very cute. It's not too draining. Being sensitive is the same thing as exploring feelings in a way that thinkers might have a hard time expressing.
many ENTP personalities realize that their ideal life involves other people and that spending too much energy on winning arguments ultimately means robbing themselves of the support that they need to get where they want to be in life. The good news is that people with this personality type will never lose their sharply nonconformist edge. They can simply use their cognitive flexibility to understand and explore others' perspectives, recognizing the value of consideration and compromise alongside logic and progress. Each personality type has 4 cognitive functions.
Gonna make so much
Functions put
fucking GP
language to the way
chat.
they process information and make decisions, and their order is based on personal preferences. Thinking and feeling are used to make decisions, while intuition and sensing are used to process information.
You know, it's definitely true because it's a crazy thing, right? Oh no! Somebody came. Can I go now? Who is this? Did you really get another freeze? Bonk. I'm too good at eating, bro. I'm never gonna get past my triple tick eating. He's kind of doing some Bro is doing some kind of, what do you call it? Bro has to stop hitting these freezes. That's what's really killing me. Come on, just let me go a little bit further. Oh, I hit another freeze. Watch out for the spec. Let's keep listening.
Thinking
It's
and
boring.
feeling are used to make decisions,
Too easy.
while intuition and sensing are used to process information. Each type is referred to by their top two functions. Internal functions are the ones you use in your head, and external functions are the ones you use to interact with the world around you. The Netty's functions are as follows. 1. External intuition. Net is Netty's core function. They use it to find patterns and underlying principles, to see future possibilities, to construct theories and frameworks, and to form connections as they talk, write, or create. To others, is what can make the Nati seem like they have their head in the clouds, constantly having crazy ideas that don't always seem in sync with reality. The rest of the functions below are said to serve the any. This means that the way of doing things gets priority.
Whatever, I'm not gonna type anything.
2.
Just
T,
in case.
internal thinking. T is what fuels the Netty's drive for knowledge and general focus on intellectual pursuits. It comes second in the functional stack, and it operates mostly in the background, doing analysis on the ideas that it seems to grasp out of thin air. It provides a logical framework and reference material to determine which ideas are logical and which are not. This is important as it can help to bring balance in response to especially fantastical ideas. 3. Fey, external feeling. Fey is third, and is where the Netty's humanitarian side originates. In social situations, it can make them a more expressive, eloquent, and otherwise skilled conversationalist, to the point where convincing others to believe in their ideas can be quite easy to do. It is also a major cause behind their drive to use their intelligence and creative problem-solving skills to help others and make the world a better place, rather than using them for purely selfish purposes.
But he said, thanks for loose. I thought it was in stream. Just based on logic, not intuition. I'm sorry, chat. I mean, obviously...
It is also a major cause behind their drive to
That was so good, I would go take a shit, I think. Nah.
It is also a major cause behind their drive to use their intelligence and creative problem-solving skills to help others and make the world a better place, rather than using them for purely selfish purposes.
What do you say, Shad? We're gonna go and finish off 100
C, internal
agility?
sensing. C is the Netty's last function. Because of this, it is inherently not as strong as the other functions. It operates subconsciously for the most part, and stores all the interesting facts and knowledge they gather in an organized way in their brain for future reference. People with C first or second are really good at implementation and keeping a system running smoothly over long periods of time. Because C is weakest for the Nati, they may struggle with being consistent, reliable, and actually implementing their ideas. However, as they grow and develop, they often learn to overcome these weaknesses. External world. Netties love thinking up new ideas and considering all the possibilities in any given situation. They learn about the world through observation and experimentation. According to Dario Nardi, PhD, Nedominant types are masters of transcontextual thinking. This means that they can easily think about things across contexts. From his book, Neuroscience of Personality, regardless of the kind of stimulus that enters the brain sights, sounds, smell, sensation, or so forth, the brain responds by rapidly processing that stimulus in multiple regions, including regions seemingly not applicable to the stimulus.
That guy knew I was there.
For example,
he got tipped
for most
off.
people, hearing the words dog and cat will evoke auditory regions,
It was by YouTube,
and perhaps
I'm not
some visual
stupid,
or memory regions.
Or
Perhaps
cool
we recall
about
a
it.
beloved childhood pet. However, the Netypes get busy using all regions to tap relationships across situations. Perhaps suddenly imagining a story about two brothers, one of whom is faithful and sociable, like a dog, while the other is independent and quiet, like cat. They might wonder about dog and cat writing styles too. This ability to think outside the box and context of the current topic is key to the Netty's creativity. Since Net is the priority, ideas are usually shared with the world first and then analyzed by T afterwards. As a result, some of their ideas can be very abstract and random and may not make sense if they haven't been run through the T filter yet. Netties are constantly chasing new shiny ideas.
That's the crazy thing, right? If this isn't true, why is it that they share with the world first their ideas and analyze them intellectually afterwards, just because this thing is the first in the cognitive stack? It's all true.
Netties are constantly chasing new shiny ideas and studying fresh topics of interest. They derive satisfaction from learning about a huge variety of topics, so they can use the information to fuel their ideas. The more diverse their learning is, the more likely it is that they can find a unique solution to a problem by pulling from their library of knowledge. They are commonly known as polymaths or Renaissance men/women because of the variety of topics they learn about. They generally prefer to
I'm a Renaissance genius from the variety of things I know about and learn about.
They are commonly known as polymaths or Renaissance men/women because of the variety of topics they learn about. They generally prefer to obtain competence in many areas rather than mastering just one skill or area of expertise. Netties naturally come up with new ideas, create hypotheses, run experiments, and extract knowledge from their experiments. However, they don't necessarily
Most
do them in that order.
experimenters.
Often they experiment first, and then draw a
So what
hypothesis
kind
from
of
their
drip gear are we
experience.
gonna go
They
in
may even
for
experiment
GP
in their
course? I don't
relationships
know,
to
man.
better understand the other person
Maybe
and how they should adapt
side,
to them. Although Na is excellent at coming up with
just
new
the
ideas,
corn.
C is last, which means that they can struggle to implement their ideas in a systematic
Maybe
way.
a bulwark.
High C types are often able to easily perform tasks that require learning a detailed system, like grammar, accounting, or legal rules, or ones that are simply repetitive, like brushing one's teeth, with a high level of consistency. It's not uncommon for them to have regular routines in their lives by choice. Netties, however, might resist performing these kinds of tasks in any sort of consistent manner. C tasks generally bore and irritate them because they don't provide them with good ideas or mental stimulation. Their ideas are more likely to reach the implementation stage if they feel like the idea will benefit others in a meaningful way. They generally do better when they avoid most of the things that require high attention to detail, mindless repetition or action, or rote.
But when you're a thinker and you're intelligent, you have a certain ability for details anyway. It's just somewhat different details sometimes, right?
Their ideas are more likely to reach the implementation stage if they feel like the idea will benefit others in a meaningful way. They generally do better when they avoid most of the things that require high attention to detail, mindless repetition or action, or rote memorization. Of course, there are things that are personally worth the potential frustration or boredom that can come with doing C tasks, like practicing to become a better musician. There are also
Which
certain
personality types
things
the
that
best
ideally should
perform in
not be
learning
avoided,
instruments?
like showering. In these cases, they may be able to think of ways to at least make the task less dull. It's likely that with tasks like this, they will not follow a regular pattern. While an C-dominant type might shower every day at 7 a.m. for 20 years, netties might end up showering twice in a single day. Avoid showering for the next 2, then shower at 5 p.m., and the next day at 2 p.m. Although netties primarily value competence over mastery, they aren't incapable of becoming experts. They are great at adapting to their present circumstances and
I
generally
also
feel
like
comfortable
blood mage
not
gear
really
with
knowing what
the
their life
noxious
will look like
scythe.
10 years from the present day. Often they fall into mastery through their various intellectual pursuits and adaptations, rather than mapping out a path from childhood to achieve a specific expert status. There are times when they have multiple interests they're trying to feed at once. They generally enjoy having a lot of variety available to them, especially if they have the ability to switch between interests at their whim. But this can easily get out of hand if there are many plates being spun and no reliable system to make sure things actually get accomplished. If the goal is simply to try things out and learn, this might be acceptable. But if it involves responsibility to others like completing a project for work,
It's
it
gonna
can
be
cause
quick.
problems. While variety is good for them, when they become more distracted than productive, they might find it helpful to surround themselves with people who can take over some of the less interesting or more menial tasks. Netties get their ideas from the world around them, and their ideas usually flow best when they have someone to bounce ideas off of. This is the nature of ne and other external functions, denoted by the lowercase e. They need interaction with the world to function optimally. This is a double-edged sword, as the outside world can also be highly distracting. Because of this, they tend to need alternating stages of input and output. Input can come from almost anywhere. It may come in the form of observations, conversations with weird and fascinating humans,
Delicious.
good books and articles, interesting assignments at work, or even simple things like enjoying nature. While some ideas may come when they're alone, having others to share their ideas with can provide useful refinement, as well as input on whether the idea will make sense in the real world or not. They are less likely to feel fulfilled and be their best self if they spend a lot of time isolated from others. It's not always easy for them to find the right people to share their ideas with. They can be extremely abstract and often seem to spring up from nothing to outside observers. So it's not always easy for other people to comprehend what they're saying. They also tend to be impatient to get started on their ideas immediately after conceiving them, and they might be disappointed when others don't immediately jump in to help them implement it. Netties really like their autonomy. Although they like working with other people on interesting ideas, They despise being micromanaged by someone they don't respect and trust. They usually prefer to take on a challenge their own way, without the steps being predefined for them. And as outside the box thinking can lead to what others may see as disruptive behavior. Often, if someone tries to make them do something one way, they'll look for a different way. This usually isn't an intentional rebellion. They look for new ways to do things because it's more exciting than following conventional routes or just doing what they've done before. Their other functions all serve their drive to find new solutions to problems. T helps them objectively say whether their novel idea will actually be an improvement or not, while Faye reminds them to value others' ideas as highly as their own. They also need C to remind them that at times, the existing way might actually be better. Netties tend to be curious about people, but having to constantly care for others can drain them quickly. They love studying people and brainstorming with them, but their default is often to try and problem solve for people when they're upset rather than only listening to them. It can take some direct instruction from others before the Nati.
Yeah, if somebody's being emotional and need grieving, or if they're upset and you shouldn't have that problem. Sometimes you just be emotional too, you know, that's the thing. It's very useful to say this to every thinker, right? This way of helping is try to.
It can take some direct instruction from others before the Nati learns what is appropriate in terms of responding to others who are in emotional pain. They may also start to feel uncomfortable around overly emotional people and can have a strong desire for the other person to just feel better so things can be normal again. Some netties have
Yeah, that's what
almost
it's being a
childlike
thinker.
emotional expression. They can be very playful and often reflect the emotions of those around them. Their Fae picks up on what others are feeling and their new adapts to
Generally, it's not that we don't bad at things and want things to get better when we can't do something. It's just that we're inefficient at it. You know, it takes a lot of energy, effort. That's why we want things to.
Some netties have almost childlike emotional expression. They can be very playful and often reflect the emotions of those around them. Their Fae picks up on what others are feeling, and their new adapts to reflect it. They often use.
This isn't necessarily child immature. It's just a way of reflecting intuitively.
They often use their mirroring and general playfulness and sense of humor to build rapport with people. However, it can be uncomfortable for them to be around very unexpressive people because they're not sure how to act or adapt without some kind of emotion to play off of. They thrive in chaotic environments as they find them fun. It gives them a more interesting input to play with for ideas. It also gives them more information to look for patterns in and is more likely to be a positive space for new ideas to come forth, as opposed to see environments which tend to be more conventional and traditional. As one Nati said, entropy reigns supreme in our natural habitat. They may share
That
things
sounds
or say things
presumptuous.
that
I
others
can.
would find inappropriate without realizing it at times. They can also use their ability to know what others are
People
feeling for their own
who
benefit,
wrote the.
for good or bad.
This
Although they
better
might
quotes.
initially enjoy pushing people's boundaries. As they develop their C, they become more aware of clear established boundaries others have, and will try to respect them. If a Nati doesn't see clearly defined boundaries, they may look for loopholes and find places they can push boundaries in order to explore and learn more. Netties care about others, but may not be exactly sure how to show it. As they get older and Faye develops more, it tends to make them quite
They get more
squishy
squishy and
and
warm as
warm
they get
towards the
older.
people they care about and helps them avoid saying things that might offend people. It also drives them to care about humanity as a whole and to consider ways they might go about helping people. Internal world. The Nettie's internal world is primarily driven by T. T is primed to make logical deductions and has a high value for knowledge and accuracy. It is always looking for the facts and the truth, and it's hungry for information. It is skilled at analyzing things and is always wondering how things work and why they work that way. Netties are constantly taking in information and turning it over in their minds, looking at it from every angle and thinking about how it relates to everything else they've learned. They regularly ask, how does this work? And why is it like this?
It's a lot of
As their T
thinking,
filters and processes their discoveries to separate
processing.
out what is useful or not useful, accurate or not accurate. Although T is secondary, it can help direct the Na to know where to look for the right information and to understand how their ideas could develop. Although Na is driving the train, T can
Everyone who learns, everyone who's a thinker, who's about learning, they tend to look for deep meanings behind learning things and the nature of learning and intellectual things.
Although Na is driving the train, T can lay down the tracks, so to speak, to show what paths actually make sense to follow.
Yeah, the NE, extrovert intuition, is chaos, but the introverted thinking is precision. It goes to say that
Although Na is driving the train, T can lay down the tracks, so to speak to show what
Let's
paths
go through
actually
the
make sense.
interesting E and TJ after this.
Although Na is driving the
It's even
train,
more
T can lay
interesting.
down the tracks, so to speak to show what paths
I could sit and learn things for hours per day just because it's interesting, and someone paid me to do that. I'm likely to learn the most of something because it's interesting.
Although Na is driving the train, T can lay down the tracks, so to speak to show what paths actually make sense to follow. And it could go in any direction. So T helps it by saying,
Okay, the next time I had a full night's sleep, because I started learning piano. Paner.
Although Na is driving the train, T can lay down the tracks, so to speak to show what paths actually make sense to follow. And it could go in any direction. So T helps it by saying, out of all 360 degrees available to you, go any direction within this 15 degrees. T also helps N stay on track, as it can help the Nati know when they're going too far off on a bunny trail that isn't going to be useful in the end. Although N is always going to try and keep all the doors open, T can point out when a particular idea is not worth exploring. Netties don't necessarily think that their ideas are perfect when they first state them. In fact, at times, they may not think them through at all before sharing them. So others should be careful not to take their first whack at an idea as their best work. They need time to let their T work on it for accuracy, and their C to take a quick swipe at the details for realism's sake. C tends to be the part of the them that is cautious and warns them about the dangers of the unknown or the practical requirements of the real world. One might want to go out and try things even if they're crazy or risky. T delights in finding the truth. If a particular argument seems to lack accuracy, T will screen it for flaws and make the Nati aware of them. C will also usually attempt to specify the details of the flaw, but may not be able to completely break down the details as it's not their core strength. In this case, they can use external libraries such as books, Google, or the expertise of others to get help with nailing down the pesky details. When the Nati is wrapped up in T analysis or concentration, the external world pales and disappears. They may become so engaged that they ignore physical stimuli, like people talking to them or
Yeah, it's kind of autistic, right? I am actually autistic, but basically, but that doesn't mean that anything isn't true I've said so far, you know. Asperger's doesn't affect intelligence in a negative way, but basically, yeah, let there be no negative connotations about anything because of that. If you feel like there should be, you're going, oh, but if he's autistic, then blah blah blah. You just need to learn more about autism Asperger's. You should go to Wikipedia. Right? People don't. I don't feel like. Yes, this is pretty crazy. Maybe the INTP is similar, maybe they're even better, but it is true. When I get wrapped up in my inner world of analysis, the external world pales and disappears. And when she gets getting into really high IQ points, it's also kind of like stepping into a dream. My mind is so far away from the physical world sometimes that and it's also uncomfortable to answer a ringing phone or what's the other thing they said? People talking to them. Yeah, it can become like a secondary thing, right? People talking to you. There's a part of being your introverted side is like yeah, you know, that's me, you know.
When the Nati is wrapped up in T analysis or concentration, the external D is very distant from the physical world in that moment, and it's hard to return to it right away. Because C is the last function, netties can have a hard time dealing with tons of minute details or implementing their ideas. They usually have a lot more fun generating ideas than carrying them out. When it comes to productivity, they may feel disappointed in how little they do compared to the number of ideas they get if they try to implement everything themselves. It can also be easy for them to forget to have a specific end goal for their lives. They often have a wide range of things they could do, but it can be hard to nail down and commit to accomplishing one thing in particular. When C is not well developed yet, the Nati may have a lot of trouble deciding that it's worth it to commit to anything long term. Verna loves it when they keep all their options open and doesn't want to feel restricted. Once C has been developed more, they can usually see that in certain circumstances, it's beneficial or even necessary to make a long-term commitment in order for them to get what they want. When C isn't being overused elsewhere, it can work with T to create models and systems that are extremely useful to the NT and often to others as well. T takes the information that it has gathered and the principles it has derived from experience and designs a particular system around that principle that C can follow. If the system is overly complicated, then C will get too stressed out and they will give up on trying to follow it. This can happen because it enjoys chaos, doesn't initially see that all the complications will be a problem, and it isn't sure exactly what is necessary and unnecessary to the routine. Before they start to build simpler models that will actually work for them, they might need to observe or experience for themselves that overly complicated models aren't very useful. This may sound odd, but building things that are simple to use often requires far more intelligent, complex work behind the scenes.
But
because C is
you don't get to hear enough that you should be complicated and you should pay attention to lots of details and you should build complicated systems, and it's part of intelligence, right? That's what I should add behind this.
Because C is last in younger years when it's not well developed, it can cause some trouble for the NT. Although chores can be strongly disliked if someone else tries to put pressure on the NT to do them at a specific.
There's much less satisfaction around doing chores and getting things done like that. It's there's no self like high SI people have this way of doing what you're supposed to do and doing routines and chores, and it's kind of like you do what you're supposed to do and then you're rewarded for doing the things you're supposed to do because you gotta just have to do it in society, right?
Because C is last in younger years when it's not well developed, it can cause some trouble for the NT. Although chores can be strongly disliked if someone else tries to put pressure on the NT to do them at a specific time, chores that they decide to complete on a whim can be relaxing because of their reliance on simple known routines. They can get really frustrated with maintenance.
Yeah, you shouldn't believe all that I said, right? You do believe me, right? Well, the best at proving things and having pictures too, the only thing I do. I don't really mind doing that. Sometimes it's good to have Google AI backing you up or a source or a picture. Just don't become too obsessed with proving things for people and you have to prove 15 pictures to everyone you meet, you know?
They can get really frustrated with maintenance when it feels unnecessary, so they tend to prefer getting involved in things they can do really well in one go, rather than having to constantly come back and be nitpicky about fixing little pieces that don't really improve the overall state of things. They may also resort to wearing the same outfit or eating the same food over and over again, so they can rely on a minimal amount of C. This lets them revert to a routine that has been internalized, as opposed to having to make decisions about a huge number of details on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's also rather autistic, or isn't it? You know, it's like it's eliminating unnecessary things and stay to the same outfit, eat the same foods. It feels very comfortable continuing on such a path.
They may also resort to wearing the same outfit or eating the same food over and over. It can also be comforting to see to go with what's familiar and nostalgic in these situations. This can make the Nati seem like they have a lack of fashion sense unless it's something they care about and choose to intentionally invest in. They may even get so absorbed by something fascinating that rest or nutrition is unintentionally forgotten because they've temporarily lost awareness regarding their physical needs. This absorption can also lead to bumping.
But you're distancing yourself from things to be as logical as possible is a thing. But for the ENTP, they have so much use of their intuition in these senses. You could say that they're not being purely logical. It's a lot of intuition, but their brain works in a way that doesn't require. They can jump between things. Feels like somebody's starting to not believe in things again. But I just told you, I'm the one that proves everything, right? Do I not see him? They have a part. Their brain works in the way that they jump from conclusions they know are true because of intuition, right? Agilely, swiftly, flawlessly, or fluently between their inner thinking and extrovert intuition. At least I do.
This absorption can also lead to bumping into things or losing things, even things that might literally be in their pocket, because of a general forgetfulness regarding the presence of the physical world. Many netties describe opening
It's pretty interesting, right? A general forgetfulness of the physical world.
Many netties describe opening tens or even 100s of tabs in their web browser and not reading the content in them, or having a hard time throwing things away because they think they might use it later. Nell likes keeping all the possibilities open and having weaker C.
Yeah, it's frustrating for me, just believe that I can do the things I've done and can do on it.
Nell likes keeping all the possibilities open, and having weaker C can mean that it's hard to figure out which pieces are more useful.
Look here. Asperger's affect intelligence. Asperger's does not lower overall intelligence.
Nell likes keeping all the possibilities open, and having weaker C can mean that it's hard to figure out which pieces are more useful than others. Netties generally don't do well with a lot of detail. They prefer to look at big picture connections rather than single concrete details. This can cause them to get easily distracted or forget what they're doing in the middle of a task if they go too far off the main path. This is why they thrive when they can be the ideas person and let other people handle the details of implementation. Once C becomes more developed, netties tend to become more productive and can be more satisfied with what they've done in their day. They can take an idea and immediately get to work on it, instead of keeping it in the idea stage forever. They can also begin to find ways to relax through C tasks, like doing dishes or cooking. The predictability and physical aspect of the process is what the C especially appreciates. It can also assist them in realistically seeing the steps necessary to accomplish their ideas. INTJ architect is a personality type with the introverted, intuitive, thinking, and judging traits. These thoughtful tacticians love perfecting the details of life, applying creativity and rationality to everything they do. Their inner world is often a private, complex one. Thought constitutes the greatness of man. Man is a reed, the feeblest thing in nature, but he is a thinking reed. Blaise Pascal. People with the INEJ personality type, architects, are intellectually curious individuals with a deep-seated thirst for knowledge. INTJs tend to value creative ingenuity, straightforward rationality, and self-improvement. They consistently work toward enhancing intellectual abilities and are often driven by an intense desire to master any and every topic that piques their interest. Logical and quick-witted, INEJs pride themselves on their ability to think for themselves, not to mention their uncanny knack for seeing right through phoniness and hypocrisy. Because their minds are never at rest, these personalities may sometimes struggle to find people who can keep up with their non-stop analysis of everything around them. But when they do find like-minded individuals who appreciate their intensity and depth of thought, INEJs form profound and intellectually stimulating relationships that they deeply treasure. A pioneering spirit. INEJs question most things, basing their beliefs on solid evidence, reasoning, and rationality. Many personality types trust the status quo, relying on conventional wisdom and other people's expertise to guide their lives. But ever skeptical INEJ personalities prefer to make their own discoveries. In their quest to find better ways of doing things, they aren't afraid to break the rules or risk disapproval. In fact, they often rather enjoy it. But as anyone with this personality type would tell you, a new idea isn't worth anything unless it actually works. INEJs want to be successful, not just inventive. They bring a single-minded drive to their work, applying the full force of their insight, logic, and willpower. They have little patience for anyone who tries to slow them down by enforcing pointless rules or offering poorly thought-out criticism, though astute observations are generally welcome. People with the INEJ personality type, independent to the core, want to shake off other people's expectations and pursue their own ideas. This personality type comes with a strong, independent streak. INTJs don't mind acting alone. In fact, they prefer their own company most of the time, perhaps in part because they don't like waiting around for others to catch up with them. People with this personality type often have no problem making decisions without asking for anyone else's input. At times, this lone wolf behavior can come across as insensitive, as it fails to take into consideration others' thoughts, desires, and plans. It would be a mistake, however, to view INTJ personalities as uncaring. Whatever the stereotypes about their stoic intellect, they feel deeply. When things go wrong or when they hurt others, they are personally affected and spend much time and energy trying to figure out why things happen the way that they did. These personalities may not always value emotion as a decision-making tool, and they have a very hard time relating to people who lead with their hearts. But
Seems
they
to
are
be a
still
lot of
authentically human, a
weaknesses,
thirst for knowledge. INTJs
or seems to be can't have everything.
INTJs can be both the boldest of dreamers and the bitterest of pessimists. They believe that, through willpower and intelligence, they can achieve even the most challenging goals. They are firm believers that taking the easy way out in any given situation prevents people from achieving greatness. But these personalities may be cynical about human nature more generally, assuming that most people are lazy, unimaginative, or simply doomed to mediocrity. People with the INEJ personality type derive much of their self-esteem from their knowledge and mental acuity. In school, they may have been called bookworms or nerds. But rather than taking these labels as insults, many people with this type embrace them. They recognize their own ability to teach themselves about and master any topic that interests them, whether that's coding or capoeira or classical music. INTJs don't just learn new things for show, they genuinely enjoy expanding the limits of their knowledge. In their seemingly constant pursuit of knowledge, people with this personality type can sometimes be single-minded, with little patience for frivolity, distractions, or idle gossip. That said, they're far from dull or humorless. Many INEJ personalities are known for their irreverent wit, and beneath their serious exteriors, they often have a sharp, delightfully sarcastic sense of humor. Social frustrations. INEJs aren't known for being warm and fuzzy. They tend to prioritize rationality and success over politeness and pleasantries. In other words, they'd rather be right than popular. And because these personalities value truth and depth, many common social practices, from small talk to white lies, may seem pointless or downright stupid to them. As a result, they may inadvertently come across as rude or even offensive when they're only trying to be honest. At times, people with the INEJ personality type may wonder whether dealing with other people is even worth the frustration. But like any personality type, INEJs do crave social interaction. They just prefer to surround themselves with people who share their values and priorities. Often, they can achieve this just by being themselves. When they pursue their interests, their authenticity
Wow.
can draw people to them, professionally, socially, and even romantically. The chess game of life.
Authenticity.
People with the INEJ personality type are full of contradictions. They are imaginative yet decisive, ambitious yet private, and curious yet focused. From the outside, these contradictions may seem baffling, but they make perfect sense once you understand the inner workings of this personality type's mind. For these personalities, life is like a giant game of chess, relying on strategy rather than chance. INTJs contemplate the strengths and weaknesses of each move before they make it, and they never lose faith that with enough ingenuity and insight, they can find a way to win, no matter what challenges might arise along the way. Each personality type has 4 cognitive functions. Functions put language to the way we process information and make decisions, and their order is based on personal preferences. Thinking and feeling are used to make decisions, while
All
intuition and
right.
sensing are used to process information. Each type is referred to by their
100
top 2
agility.
functions. Internal functions are the ones you use in your head, and external functions are the ones you use to interact with the world around you. The Knight's functions are as follows. 1. NI, internal intuition. NI is like a background processor that can compute and process information without needing to consciously work through each part of the thought. It's easily able to see 10 steps ahead and predict what might happen in the future because NI dominant types are able to access many parts of their brain at once to find an optimal solution to new problems. Because NI is the Knight's main function, everything else is said to serve it. 2. TE, external thinking. TE allows Knights to operate efficiently in all areas of life. It is the Knight's primary decision-making process, which means that if a decision is needed in the moment, they will rely on what makes the most sense objectively. Because TE is the primary external function, it is usually the first thing other people will notice about Knights. 3. Phi, internal feeling. Phi is the Knight's third function. It is the Knight's secondary decision-making process and can take longer to come to a conclusion than TE does. Because it's an internal process, it likes to mull over
What I
all the
want to do
details
now.
before deciding. Phi is what tells the Knight how they feel or how others might feel about a particular thing. It can act as a warning system when TE thinks a decision makes sense, but Phi knows it's a bad idea. 4. Sei, external sensing. Sei is the Knight's last function. As a last function, it is inherently not as strong as the other functions. Sei is the Knight's more concrete side that lets them connect to the world around them. Having Sei last means that Knights can easily get drained if they have to actively engage with the people or the world around them for long periods of time. Internal world. Knights have a very deep internal world. They are extremely intuitive and can often see all the possibilities for how a particular situation will play out. They are then able to analyze all the options and refine them down until they arrive at what they feel is the most likely one. They may even be able to use this to predict the future in a sense. Some Knights are so involved in their internal world that their version of the world differs from what most people would define as reality. This can foster a powerful imagination, which lets them come up with completely novel ideas, because they simply aren't tied to thinking about things in terms of the normal limits others consider. They may even end up accomplishing things others would deem impossible. However, this imagination also has the ability to be detrimental if they become isolated from
I saw
input.
some wood cutting,
They
I think.
need feedback from others to help determine when their ideas are genius,
Guess I can do
and
it
when they are just a
eventually.
little too far out there. A common strategy that can be especially helpful for Knights is to create a stripped-down beta version of their idea and then get it out there to see how people respond. If all goes well, they can start adding on more of the features and incorporating other ideas they had. Otherwise, they may want to go back and work on the base concept again, or try a different idea entirely. Knights really like improving things. They tend to enjoy work where they get to combine their ability to see 10 steps ahead with their drive to make things better and more efficient. Some examples could be engineering, product design, architecture, or the sciences. They also tend to be interested in solving big practical issues like pollution or overpopulation. They can be very all or nothing. Knights tend to be very deliberate about the choices they make, and they like to do things with excellence when they're working on something they care about. This means that doing the right work, they are extremely responsible and determined. With the wrong work, they may get irritable and apathetic about the way the job is done, or may focus too much on little details without being able to see what's most important in the context of the big picture. It's important that they gain the self-awareness needed to know the difference. Figuring this out sooner rather than later can prevent years of frustration, both on the part of the Knight themselves and their bosses and coworkers. In any experience, they may get irritated at times if they feel like the person in charge doesn't know what they're doing. Over time, they can learn how to tell when it's actually just a difference from their own leadership style, which they can respect, versus a real problem that is going to have significant negative consequences. Generally, they're able to start seeing this difference in young adulthood, but it can take a long time to give the benefit of the doubt to the person in charge. When it comes to making life transitions, Knights like to think things through and implement them one step at a time. This way, if something doesn't work out like they thought it would, they can adjust or redirect the path they're on to take the new information into account. It also might take Knights a little while to process something before they really know how they feel about it. Especially with big decisions, it's usually beneficial for them to have at least a day or two to think things over before giving their final decision. Knights may generally expect things to stay the same in their relationships, even if they haven't talked to the other person for a while. They may also have a clear expectation of how something will play out based on past experiences with the other person. However, there are times they reconnect with someone and realize that the other person forgot to inform them that things had changed. An example could be an old friend that didn't mention they were dating someone and brought them along to a planned hangout. If it's something that their NI wasn't able to predict, it can feel very abrupt. Because say is last, the knight's ability to just go with what's happening in the moment usually isn't very strong until they've had a chance to develop it more. This usually happens in their late 20s and beyond. Although it's different for each knight, unpredicted interruptions can feel disruptive to their flow for the day. They're likely to get into a certain state, an organized or relaxed state, for example, and they prefer to stay in that flow for a chunk of time rather than switching back and forth between errands and relaxing. Being able to stick to the same types of activities for a chunk of time can help the knight better deal with the external world. Similarly, if someone says something that the knight wasn't expecting to hear, they may feel confused as to why the person is sharing that particular thing with them. An example could be a coworker mentioning that a parent died. Because the knight's feeling is internal, they usually don't have enough time in the moment to know how they feel about it. They may even ignore it completely because it's an uncomfortable situation and they're not sure how to respond. In these situations, they may find that it helps to ask the person a question so that they have enough information to feel like they're on the same wavelength. This can also give them an easy way to avoid talking if they're not sure what to say. When knights are younger, they don't have enough past experience in various areas of life to pull from in order to know which reactions would be appropriate in social and relational settings. They might say something and get a negative response. But while they may be aware that it didn't go over well, they can struggle if they don't know exactly what they should replace the old behavior with. Their safest bet is often to try a small tweak to see if it makes a difference, rather than trying an entirely new approach. Although some people may simply try to step into the other person's shoes to handle this, an I and Phi as a pair can create an extremely subjective perspective. This can also mean that knights may offend people unintentionally at times. Knights are quite private and generally don't show their real feelings often, and are often accused of not having much empathy or emotion because of their lower levels of expression. When they do get emotional, it's usually because they're talking about something that matters to them deeply. It can be useful for them to take note of the times they get emotional or passionate about something, as these can be clues to their values and core mission in life. At times, NI can get overwhelmingly intense. When it's stuck in a loop of examining every thread of possibility on either a particular topic or simply everything the knight encounters throughout their day, they can get really exhausted. They can also end up in NI-Phi loops where they create an entire subjective reality in their mind based on a fairly small amount of evidence. It's important for knights to have good people around them to draw them back into the real world and prevent them from getting too lost in these kinds of situations. External world. Knights can come across as fairly serious around most people, with the exception of the few people they feel close to. They often prefer to be autonomous in their day-to-day life and are unlikely to cater their whole life to try and make people happy. They feel really good when they know that they have the option to be completely independent of other people and their decisions. However, when it comes to a significant other, they can be extremely devoted and loyal as long as their trust isn't betrayed. Knights can make great managers if it's worth it to them, but it's important for them to recognize the types of people they work well with and develop their ability to delegate tasks to those working for them. Although they can usually train someone to do a particular task, they tend to prefer teaching people who pick it up quickly so they can move on to the next thing. If the other person comes back to them every 5 minutes asking for more help, they can start to feel frustrated. The knight may forget that not everyone is able to tackle tasks independently like they can. In casual conversation, they may be tempted to correct what they feel are inaccuracies stated by others or point out information they feel is being left out. They can usually see why someone is coming from their own perspective, but they like to bring up alternative perspectives so the person can see it from a different point of view. If you're close to one, you can trust a knight to tell you if they think you're being stupid, although it might not be surrounded by fluffy language to make you feel good. It's likely they are doing it from a genuine place of caring about you. They also tend to need to talk through their thoughts, or at least externalize them, by writing them out to feel like they're fully fleshed out. Generally, the thoughts in their head exist in a very abstract form, so talking them through or writing them down can help to solidify them. They may find it frustrating at times if people assume that the thoughts they're sharing are fully formed and decided on, when often they're just talking to work out a thought and they haven't quite arrived at a conclusion yet. Knight's internal world has a certain intensity to it that they may feel is lost once it's brought out through verbal communication. They tend to be more at ease communicating through images, sound, written word, or some other form of expression where they are able to explore the full depth of an idea and expand on it before presenting it to public scrutiny. They are also usually more interested in finding the meaning behind things than taking them at face value. which means they may take some time to process new opportunities or unusual circumstances they find themselves in. It's important for the Knight to not spend too much of their day in an environment that demands their focus on real-world details that don't have a clear and obvious structure to them. They naturally operate well in circumstances where they know exactly what they're meant to do in concrete terms. However, because say is last while an eye is driving, so to speak, if they have yet to be trained on exactly how to do something and it's not clear to them intuitively, they may freeze up. This is because an eye can see so many ways of doing the same thing that they can struggle to pick one option over the other. As they age and develop Tay, they tend to get better at just picking an option and going with it, and then analyzing it afterwards to see if a change needs to be made the next time around. It's not uncommon for them to have strong abilities that they don't really show off to people. You may be surprised to stumble across a drawing and learn that a Knight you know is excellent at drawing manga characters, but never mentioned it to you before. Too much time being forced to engage with the real world can get really exhausting for them. Finding ways to minimize this drain is a good way to allow them to focus their creative abilities on the things they're best at. One of the biggest drains is when real-world things are unstable, like not having enough money to pay the bills. And the Knight needs to think about all the little practical details of staying alive. It can be especially stressful. Having to actively think about finding work, doing paperwork, playing the social games, cooking their food, and making money can get old really fast. Another common drain can be having a lot of emotional demands from people around them that they simply don't have the energy to meet.
Yeah, alright. I'm starting to feel like in a dead end here. I'm tired, I didn't sleep enough. So I'm going to take a break. Thank you.